This is not a ride sharing video. This is not a ride sharing video. What up, folks? Once again, it is your boy Tim, the handsome liberal, hoping that the feed will keep up. Nevertheless, we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl today. Just about everybody, I'm sure, has watched the big game as of now. And we're going to be giving it to you from an aspect that the Super Bowl dealt with some of the biggest issues we tackled and discussed today. Race, gender, and religion was discussed at the Super Bowl. Are our sports events becoming too woke? Is this something that should be, disregarded in terms of sports? Is this something that should not have been brought up at a sports game? Now, what am I talking about? Well, there's a host of things. Obviously, people made a big fuss over the fact that this is the first time in Super Bowl history that we had two African-American quarterbacks. The song Lift Every Voice and Sing, which has now become kind of the synonymous version of the Black national anthem, preceded the regular national anthem. So Lift Every Voice and Sing, you're starting to hear that more and more. Racial slogans being on the back of helmets and things like that, such as, we're in this together, end racism and things like that, is being seen around the NFL. Now, in addition to tackling race, they also tackle gender and religion, and we'll get into that. Real quick, folks, tap the screen. Get your boy up to 5,000 likes. As I say in every broadcast, this is a MAGA-friendly show. MAGA are my preferred guests. I do not block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. Give you plenty of time in the box to state your point. The fact that you may disagree with the host doesn't mean a damn thing. So in addition to race, they dealt with gender. Starting out, there was a squadron of F-16s that flew over the field right after the anthem. All of the pilots were women, and they showed you a live shot of one of the female pilots. So now we're getting into the gender issue, whereas there was also a commercial giving females credit for what they've done with the sport of football, giving females credit with the sport, what they've done with the sport of football, and insinuating that there's probably going to be a female football league, flag football, so to speak. So we've dealt with race, gender, and there were two commercials openly discussing Jesus and hate. The commercials talked about, I believe one of them stated that Jesus would have liked, or Jesus likes and loves all the people we hate. So is this stuff out of place at a Super Bowl? Is this too much for sports? That's what we're going to be talking about today, because all of those issues came up, and you now have a lot of talking heads also suggesting that they need to have more black owners. Looking in the comments, it's a free-for-all, says, well, it's certainly being discussed. I don't know if we've gotten to the point where it's a free-for-all, but it's certainly being discussed. Going straight to the box. Army vet, welcome back to... Looks like it's going to be choppy. Hopefully we can make this work, but for some reason it looks like I'm getting a choppy. Good afternoon, Army vet.
Hey, how's it going?
Going good. So are we becoming too woke at our sport events?
Well, I don't say a person can be too woke, right? Just wake the hell up and understand that
Well,
this is a new
let
world.
me elaborate on that. I'll let you respond. But when folks say too woke, in other words, bringing up issues that might not have any place in this particular forum.
Where is the right place? I mean, Congress is not dealing with it, right? We can't just talk about it
Right.
at the kitchen table and the issues are going to get resolved. So you want to bring up those issues on the biggest stage so that the most eyes can be on it, and then a real debate can form from there if there is a debate. Me, I didn't see anything that I would disagree with. Women pilots, let's recognize that there was a time that women couldn't even be in combat positions in the military. So
Right.
there women making strides. Let's do it. I've seen people
So how do
complain
you?
about why they keep
But
bringing up two black quarterbacks in the NFL, and
yeah,
I'm like, there was a time where they said black men, black quarterbacks wasn't a real thing because they didn't have the intelligence for the position. Right
yeah,
now,
yeah.
the way
So
that black
let
quarterbacks
me
play
ask you
is
this
the
though.
damn near the standard.
Let me ask you this straight out of the comments, because what you're talking about, where you're suggesting that you don't see anything wrong with it. Emkley Buddy in the comments has said he cannot forgive what the NFL did to Colin Kaepernick. Do you see any issues where we're still being mistreated in the NFL?
Well, absolutely. There's always a double standard in any almost in any business, right? You're going to have a double standard. What they did to Colin Kaepernick is unforgivable, right? But it's not unforgivable to the point that okay, let's just tear down the NFL and not give all these other people the opportunity to lift their family out of whatever position they may be in. So the
Right.
the fact that Colin did what he did, it's timing, right? Think of it even on the NBA level. They're able to discuss things in the NBA right now that they couldn't do back when Mahmoud Abdul Rauf was playing. Right? He wouldn't stand for the national anthem in the NFL, and they ran. I mean, in the NBA, and they ran him out the NBA.
Yeah.
So
But
times are
so how
changing.
do you
You
respond to
have to change
people?
with it.
Yeah, but how do you respond to folks who say, I came here to watch a game. I'm not here for all the politics and racial issues?
So why do we have the national anthem? Why do we have recognizing the military? That ain't got nothing to do with football. We
Yeah.
having flyovers that has nothing to do with football. Even before there were women pilots, but they didn't complain about it back then. So why in the hell you gonna complain about things being discussed right now? You know what I'm
I
saying?
can't
They
argue with
wanted to
that.
bring
I can't argue.
recognition to the military, so they brought it in.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't argue with that at all. So you didn't see. What about the lift every voice and sing? I see folks all over social media because lift every voice and sing. I sung it when I was in school, by the way, years ago, eons ago, when I was a young
Hmm.
lad in school. But folks are suggesting that, well, we don't need a black national anthem. We already have a national anthem for everybody. Do you see any issue of preceding the national anthem by singing "Lift Every Voice and Sing"?
Yeah, I have a problem with it. I mean, nobody sent me a survey and say if I wanted to adopt "Lift Every Voice and Sing" as a black national anthem, right? I didn't have a say so. Who says that's our national anthem? You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah.
So I have a problem with it from that standpoint that somebody that they considered a black leader, which I don't know who the hell that person is, decided that this is our national anthem. So yeah, I have a problem from that standpoint. But do I have a problem with the standpoint of bringing something in prior to the national anthem? No. I'm a veteran and I don't stand for the national anthem. You know what I'm saying? I had to salute the
You wait,
flag
wait.
every day while
You
I was
do
in,
not
and I dislike
wait.
doing it.
You served in the military, and you don't stand for the national anthem.
No.
Why not?
Why should I?
Well, you are
I don't.
you
Who says I
you
have to?
in the military. Is that an option even in the military that you don't have to stand for the anthem?
I mean, the national anthem has absolutely, honestly, nothing to do with the military. You know what I'm saying?
What
Like
about the
when I
flag?
when we
But
had to
what
get up
about
in
the flag?
formation, when we had to go to
Do you
formation,
honor do you honor the flag
yeah, you
itself?
had to salute it. You had to salute it.
Okay. All right. All right. There we go.
Listen,
Okay.
I did what I had. I did what I had to do when I was in there. Right. I had to salute. You get in trouble if you don't salute the flag. Right. So I
Right.
did it. But we've suffered just as much under this red, white, and blue flag than we did under the Confederate. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the flag is just a symbol. I was in there to defend the Constitution. You see what I'm saying? The flag is just a symbol. The anthem is just a song to me. You understand what I'm saying? The Constitution is what matters to me. That's what I was in there to defend. I wasn't in there to defend freedom. I wasn't in there to defend democracy, none of that stuff. The Constitution. Anything outside the Constitution is just something to make people feel good.
That's a strong opinion. Army vet, I do got to move it on. You know how we do. Always good to hear from
Yes,
you,
sir.
man. Absolute. And thank you for your service. All right.
All right.
Looking in the comments, that was a strong opinion. I love to hear what you guys have to say. And nevertheless, that is that gentleman's right, just like it is yours, whether you want to observe the national anthem, the flag itself, or not. All right, looking in the comments, why did you good answer? It's his answer. Happy Black History Month, says my own little world. Appreciate that. Thank you. But that's we're gonna be tackling that real quick. I'll go right back to the box. But two black quarterbacks, first time in Super Bowl history, they're making a fuss about that. You got folks, as I just pointed out, the song Lift Every Voice and Sing. I know all the words to it. We did it as a kid in school. Being referred to as the national black anthem. You're hearing that before a lot of NBA games as well. And the racial slogans that you've seen all over NFL stadiums throughout the season, it's on the back of their helmets, phrases like "end racism," "we're in it together," all of that sort of thing. In the NBA right now, they're even wearing t-shirts that say Black History Month. Does this fit in sports, or is it inappropriate to bring this into professional sports? And I pointed out the all-female F-16 team that flew over the stadium in Arizona. They deliberately picked female pilots. They got commercials talking about women's football, and they even had two ads talking about Jesus. Does this have any place in professional sports? Let's go right to the box. The one and only. This should be quite interesting. I haven't talked to you in a few days. Always welcome on the program. Strong MAGA. Personality indeed. It is the one and only 52 Cent. Always a pleasure to talk to 52 Cent. Good afternoon, 52. What's going on?
How are we doing today?
I'm doing good. Did you catch the game yesterday?
I started watching 2 minutes before halftime.
Oh shit! You missed a lot of it. Then you missed some. You missed all of the good Philadelphia parts.
Well, that's all right. I almost married a girl from Philly. I'm not impressed with Philly. Sorry.
So you missed most of the stuff that I'm talking about, such as singing, lift every voice.
Social media has shown it to me. I've seen it all.
Do you see any issue with this in professional sports, or do you believe it fits right in, like my last caller said?
Well, if you gotta go by the percentages. If it's half black and it's half white, and there's something that represents black people, and there's something that represents white people, they ought to be able to do it. Why not?
Okay. So,
but it's not a national anthem.
What do you mean? Lift every voice and sing?
That is not a national anthem.
Right, but let me ask it to you this way. Do you believe the "Oh Say Can You See" national anthem that we do have was inclusive? Do you believe that anthem was meant for everybody in this country?
When it was written, yes.
When that anthem was written, fighting for freedom and all of that, you think it was in reference to people like me too?
Well, it is now by default.
But that's not what I'm asking, though. We're not talking about changing it by default. We're talking about.
I don't think the national anthem was based on what a man laid on the ground and saw in the heat of a battle. The last thing on his mind was, is this going to cover Japanese people and black people and anybody that migrates here? It was about the battle. It was about what he saw and us fighting for our freedom as a nation.
Yeah, but if the song is about fighting for our freedom as a nation, that's the question I'm asking. If we won the fight for our freedom as a nation, according to that song, in that victory, would I have been able to celebrate my freedom alongside everybody else?
You should have been.
Okay, but would I have been?
Probably not, but you should have
Right.
been.
So that goes back to my original question. Was that song written for people like me?
That song wasn't written about people like you or me. It was written about that battle.
Yeah.
It's what he was witnessing happening right now.
Yeah, but you mentioned freedom. You mentioned the song talking about winning a battle and obtaining freedom. And that's
For
where
the nation. And you fall under the nation.
right. So winning
you're
freedom,
under that umbrella.
but that's the point I'm making, is that winning freedom for the nation back then, once our nation was free, what was my life like?
Well, you weren't even a twinkle in your daddy's eye back then.
You know what I'm talking about.
And neither was I.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, though. You do know what I'm talking about.
Hey, our history's pretty shitty.
Yeah.
But don't try to erase it. If you do, it's going to repeat itself. And that's proven itself time and time again.
Okay, well, here's the issue that I tend to have when we talk about erasing history. Do you, in your honest opinion, believe our history was ever taught accurately to begin with?
Oh, no.
Right.
No, because they didn't have the ways to document it like you do today. There wasn't pictures, they didn't have cameras to document it. They didn't have computers to document it. Obviously, the history that our grandkids are going to get is going to be more accurate than what we got.
So,
and it's only going to get better.
But that's what confuses me when folks suggest we don't want to erase history, yet we are willing to admit the history we were taught was not accurate. So I don't see it as erasing history. I see it as correcting inaccuracies in many points.
Well, if let's say magically a roll of film showed up from 1880 and you could see people, you could see the sign coloreds only or whites only, or you can't use this drinking fountain, you can't use this bathroom. One of the best movie things I saw was that black girl that worked for NASA. And she came back from her bathroom break. And she said, he's like, where the hell did you go? I went to the bathroom. It took you 45 minutes to go to the bathroom? Well, there's no bathroom for me here.
You're talking about Taraji P. Henson in the movie Hidden Figures. And that's what I'm talking about, though, is the fact that movie in recent years, only a few years ago that movie came out, taught us that a lot of female African Americans had their play in the NASA space program. Yet our history teaches us that NASA, for the most part, was all white. So that's the point I'm trying to make to you, is that we're not erasing history. We're correcting inaccuracies that were taken out of it.
Well, yeah, and I don't see, like I said, if something shows up and it's indisputable and it's factual, heavens yes, you got to talk about it, whether it's good, bad, or ugly.
Okay, so what does CRT mean to you?
CRT means they're trying to separate us more.
How so? What are they doing that would separate us?
Whenever, just like I said, the national anthem wasn't written about the races of people. It was written about the moment. If you keep throwing
racist, though. Wait a minute. If you're writing about the moment, that's like me saying, I wrote the song Secret Lovers when I was cheating on my girlfriend, but it actually ain't about my girlfriend. It's about the moment. Well, we know what you were doing. The moment was racist as hell. So I agree with you. It might be about the moment, But the moment was a horrible time in history.
Well, that wasn't the Civil War now when that
It
was
was,
written.
yeah, it was written before that. It was
Right.
even
Okay.
worse.
Okay. Well, CRT, when they're telling little white kids that we owe a black kid something, we don't. We
Tell me,
didn't. We
tell me
didn't
in what
cause.
way?
We
In what
didn't
way
cause
do you believe?
history.
Let me interrupt. I'll let you continue. But in what way are like how? What are they saying? You owe them a bike? You owe them a house? What are they telling little white kids that they owe African Americans?
Well, that we have some sort of privilege. We don't have
Oh.
any goddamn privilege. Sorry, we don't.
Have you ever had privilege?
No,
So you don't believe whites have ever had privilege in America over blacks?
I'm talking about me personally.
We're not. Come on, 52. You know we're talking on general terms in regards to the entire country, not just one man. This isn't
Well,
Lee Majors and the $6 million man. We're talking about
just
the
a
whole
minute.
country.
Listen closely.
So, but I'm asking you for real. Do you believe white Americans in this country have ever had privilege over black Americans?
Well, if we owned you at one time, absolutely.
So, in your opinion, when did that privilege end?
We never, that's not a privilege, nor was it a right. It was a mistake.
Yeah, okay. But I'm saying you're admitting that there was a time when whites had an advantage over blacks, right?
Well, yes, but I also,
When did those advantages end? When did they end?
that buck stopped with me. The $6 million 52.
All right, 52. I gotta move it on. You know what you're doing. I appreciate you coming through. You always welcome back, man. Good talk.
And
Haven't heard from you
did,
in a while.
did your team win?
No, I lost $100 on them damn Eagles. That's why I said
Well,
you missed all the good parts. The first half was all Eagles. Second half was all Mahomes. So
yeah,
you
I
missed
saw
it.
that when I turned it on. They were up by 7, and then they got a field goal before halftime, and it was 10.
Yeah. I'm
And then the ref,
disappointed. I gotta move
and
it
then
on.
the
I don't
ref
want to hear about
kicked
that
in.
bullshit.
Then
All
the
right,
ref
man.
kicked in and
All
flopped
right.
it.
Yeah, no shit. Catch you later. All right, look in the comments. Appreciate you folks. If this is what you tend to like, civilized conversation, both sides of the aisle, as I say in every program. Tim Knowles, appreciate your generosity with those flames. This is a MAGA friendly program. Let my name not discourage you. I do not block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. If this civilized sort of dialogue is what you prefer, feel free to follow the broadcast. Nevertheless, if you disagree with the host, doesn't mean a damn thing here. I respect your opinion just as much as my own. Going back to the box, it is, my name is Kitten. Holding there, Kitten. You do a great
Here
job.
from Liverpool. What's
Said
up,
that,
man?
Andre. Appreciate that. Kitten, good afternoon.
What's going on, man? How are you?
Not much. Doing good, man. Other than the $100 I lost on Philadelphia yesterday, I'm doing good. But
Yeah, I could have
in
told you not
watching
to
the
bet on
game,
the Eagles, man.
but everybody thought the
Yeah.
Eagles was going to win. You see, Strahan, Jimmy John, all of those guys. Everybody,
Nah,
even
man.
all of the analysts, huh?
I lived in Jacksonville when they played the Buccaneers. I lost $500 on them. I could have told you not to bet on the Eagles, man.
I wish I had. I wish I had talked to you early then. So,
Yeah.
what do you think, though? Do you think they're tackling too many issues that have nothing to do with football?
I think as long as it doesn't spoil the enjoyment or quality of the game, then you haven't gone too far. But you can have too much of anything, to be honest with you. You can overindulge or overuse anything, but I think it's going to be far more prevalent in movies than for them to be able to do something like that in sports, right? Because in between the sport, they're having little entertainment pieces here and there, and that's fine. So it's really hard to overdo it in sports. In movies, that's a different story. You can really overdo this kind of stuff in movies. I don't know if you can ever get to the point where it's too much in sports because, like, it's the sport, right? You're really watching the sport.
Yeah, but in regards to overdoing it, and by the way, folks, tap the screen, get your boy up to 20,000 likes, 900 plus of us in here. Show your boy some love, helps out the algorithms, tends to bring more MAGA, which is what this program is friendly to. Liberals are preferred. Now, in regards to your comment, you cannot overdo it. So how do you respond to folks who suggested that Colin Kaepernick was indeed overdoing it? There are a lot of folks who no longer watch the NFL because of what Colin Kaepernick was doing.
I mean, I don't see how the guy taking a knee for, like, how long is the national anthem? A minute or two? I don't see how that's really overdoing anything. It's only a minute or two. If the guy, if you don't like seeing the guy on his knee, don't watch the anthem and wait till the game starts, right? You can just ignore that and wait till the game starts, right?
Yeah, but what about because obviously Cap was doing it in protest of police, and a lot of folks may have law enforcement in their family or something like that, or deep respect for the police, and they believe that what he is doing is passing a divisive message on to people.
Yeah, I understand that they feel that way, and I think it's very easy for you to just go get a snack at the snack stand, turn the TV off until the game starts. You know what I mean? You don't really have that ability. If they put a bunch of political stuff in a movie, you kind of have to. You're stuck there watching the movie, right? But with a sport, you can just wait till the sport starts. So it's much harder to overdo this kind of thing with sports than it is with, say, a TV show or a movie.
Yeah, but what about the idea that once he started taking a knee, it really caught on? There were high school students all across the country now taking a knee during the anthem. And this is what upset a lot of parents.
What I would say to that is, work harder to eliminate racism and bigotry, and then you won't have to see people taking knees during sporting events.
I like that. I like that. But a lot of folks believe that as opposed to being victims of racism, it's really a lot of African Americans putting themselves in precarious positions and expecting some kind of special treatment. I hear that all the time on my broadcast. If you just comply with the law, this wouldn't be happening to you.
I mean, I would challenge you guys to go watch Dr. Ritchie on Young Turks every day. He has a young black person who was simply sitting in their house or just sitting in their car.
He has a new one every day?
Dr. Ritchie on the Young Turks every day has incidences where this is why the people in chat, they don't understand how bad it really is. Every day there are multiple instances of black people being abused or shot or killed or unalived by the police. It happens every day, multiple times a day. And if you're not aware of this, you may not be keeping up with things the way you should.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Young Turks. I actually met Sink. I got pictures and shit like that with him, but I didn't know. I haven't watched it in a while. Every day, there's that much.
Every day. Dr. Ritchie every day has a poor, young, or old black person being abused somehow, some way by the police. Yesterday, it was a Karen who pulled up to a gentleman's house, didn't like that his little girl was watering the neighbor's flowers, and she called the cops on a little girl watering flowers.
Yeah.
And then the cops came.
Real quick in the comments, Becky Hill said, come on, handsome, Listen, I'm not going to pretend like I don't believe the police have treated African Americans unfairly. I mean, that's the entire reason police were created, was to do shit to us. But I didn't know it was enough room to have somebody on there every damn day. That goes beyond even what I thought. Wow, every day.
A lot of people in this chat think because you're not seeing it in the news that it doesn't happen. Well, you're just fooling yourself. Most of these instances don't make it to national news. The majority don't.
Yeah, I often respond with, the sensational stuff make the news. Not Colin Kaepernick, but George Floyd, being suffocated, or, Rodney King, or in recent times, what just happened with Tyree Nichols down in Memphis. But in reality, 99.9% of people who are mistreated by police do not get beat up or killed. It's usually a wrongful search, or they take something from them that they had no reason to take. And the citizen just goes home either crying, angry, or having a whole new attitude attitude towards police. That represents most of us that have been mistreated, because I've had that happen to me a couple of times. And
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I didn't go down and file a report or anything like that, because at the end of the day, you kind of know it's not really going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't get mad at sports players for trying to want to bring attention to a horrible, terrible situation that's going on. What I will say is this: you do need to be careful about that stuff when it comes to movies. I mean, take a look at the Velma show, for example. That's a perfect example of when you put too much politically woke material into a TV show.
What
It's
is it called?
terrible. Velma, it's a spin-off of the original Scooby-Doo. It's called Velma. I challenge you to at least
Oh.
watch one episode all the way through.
I don't watch Velma unless it's pornographic. That's the now I
I
love
hear you.
those. I don't watch anything with Velma unless it's porn.
Okay,
I
go
gotta
watch
move it on,
She-Hulk.
kitten. Huh?
All right, man, later. She-Hulk. Go
All right.
watch She-Hulk. That's another good example with too much.
Oh my God. Okay, good talk. All right, looking in the section, you are nice. Yeah, I've never heard of that. Didn't stop until, what is that? You are wrong. I am a victim of police violence, and it didn't stop until I was able to create a lawsuit. User 594. Well, every time you hear of one of these police officers being found guilty of mistreating someone, oftentimes you find out they have a host of shit in their jacket of other people making complaints. Like Derek Chauvin had, about 24 complaints over his time or whatever. So in your case, you reported it and you ended up getting a lawsuit and emerged victorious. That's really good. I don't discourage anybody from reporting to police. I'm just simply saying you should understand why someone like myself would suggest most of us don't feel it's going to go anywhere. Hell, even if you are a white guy, it doesn't matter anything to do with race. When you're going up against sworn officers, they have a leg up on you. If you don't have it on video, because there are plenty of white people that have complained that the police have mistreated them and it did not go anywhere. So your lawsuit, you emerged victorious. I applaud you for that. But nevertheless, most of us know if something happens to you on the side of the road and there's no video footage of it, chances are the cop is not going to be really punished much. If the cop says I didn't do it or I had to do this to effect an arrest, they're going to take his word. They always have. All right, looking in the comments. Democrats are okay with Democrats being racist. Only cry for Republican is. Click, click. That's not true, because you got to look at what happened to Ilhan Omar. Now, the Republicans just kicked her off the committee for her anti-Semitic remarks, but nevertheless, Nancy Pelosi was all over her for when she actually did it. Same thing happened to I believe it was Senator Al Franken up in Minnesota. They punished him. There's been a host of Democrats that have paid a price for doing things they shouldn't have done. So it's not that the Democrats will ignore bad Democrats. In fact, I would submit to you that you're probably more likely to be chastised if you make an anti-Semitic, anti-woman, anti-minority, anti-LGBT comment from Democrats than you are from folks on the other side. That's my belief. All right, we'll go right back to the box. The Mentor King. Good afternoon, Mentor King. So has professional sports gone over, gone too woke, bringing up issues they should not?
How you doing, sir?
Good to have you on.
My whole thing, so I am a Republican, and I understand the whole divide. I hate it. I think that there are some great Democrats. I love Tulsi. That's just one.
Tulsi's a Republican now, isn't she?
Oh, did she switch? I didn't.
Yeah.
keep
She don't count. She don't count no more. Give me another one.
We need a good common ground to somebody who's more in the middle. I think the voters are more in the middle than what is represented, to be honest.
So where's all this division coming from?
What'd you say?
Where's all this division? You mentioned we've become too divisive. Where's all this coming from?
This is where the conspiracies kind of get into play, but facts are facts. I mean, when you have George Soros and some of the people who own those media outlets, certain narratives get to be pushed, and that's why stuff like Project Veritas and stuff was created to kind of bring that stuff to light, because we're told a certain narrative. And I mean, you can that can be traced back to pretty much anything. You're relying on the information to be solely accurate. And so when you find a way to control what's being said, it's very easy when every television and everybody's got a phone, it's very easy to tell them what
Yeah.
what you want them to see.
Give
So,
me some, if you're, in your opinion, some examples of divisive rhetoric coming out of the media today.
well, and I don't want to be labeled anything because I don't want to be the white guy
We
that
don't do
says,
that. We
I
don't
don't
do
want to be
that
the
here.
white guy
Just your
that says, hey,
opinion.
I've got black friends. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that, but this is what I am saying is that if by stats we look at it and go, okay, well, if white people, black people, the point is people die. And there is an alarming rate of both races that die, to be honest. I think that's a severe problem. I think that there are a lot of cops now, and I think this is a society problem. I think it's only going to get worse because of how society has forced both parents to work due to inflation, which teaches kids to have someone else in a classroom
So,
teach
well,
their children.
let me interrupt and ask you this. So, when you talked
Sorry.
about divisive and you mentioned the police, so do you believe that the police are any more harsher on minorities, Hispanics, blacks at all compared to whites, or do you believe they treat
Here's where I was
everybody
going. I
equally?
was trying not to go too far off, but here's what I was pretty much going with it. We as a society have taken parenting away from parents by making them work so much that our children now, and this has gone on, you can tell since video games have become more prevalent, shootings have become way more higher up in the since if you take from when first person shooters and when like Atari and stuff, you start looking at statistics from when that era started, all of this becomes more prevalent. And I think a lot of decision making goes out the window and a lot of reaction without thinking comes into play. And that
Okay.
is, I think that
Okay.
comes from,
Now, okay, I get what you're saying. That a lot of
and
folks are not.
I think it's going to get worse as both
Okay,
parents
but
are
the
out of the
question
home.
fair enough. I get that a lot of people are doing things and not realizing the consequences, but the response to what they do you believe the police and law enforcement and our judicial system treats minorities harsher for doing the same thing as, say, a white child?
I would be more apt to believe that it was a financial stance in comparison to race.
Okay. So you
I
believe it's
think
more of
when
a
you go into the courthouse and you have a lawyer, you're looked at 10 times differently if you have a public defender.
okay. So you believe it's more classism. You believe if you are a wealthy black person, you're not going to get treated any different than a wealthy white person.
Did OJ get treated differently?
How many OJs? How
I'm
many
not
black
saying that.
folks
I'm
can
not
deal with
saying that
OJ?
how many. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just saying that
I
we
can,
can talk
yeah,
about
I
how there are
yeah,
instances.
yeah, but I get OJ looks like he got off for a double homicide. I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but obviously the OJ Simpson case is so rare that we're still bringing up OJ, and that's
But
like
who is
30
no?
years
I don't
ago.
not. But what I'm saying is who is his lawyer? How much money did he spend to defend himself?
Yeah, yeah.
That's my
So
point. It wasn't about
okay, so
race. It was about the money.
let me present it to you this way.
Ray
An
Lewis.
An
Ray
African
Lewis.
American, hold on, hang on. An
Pac-Man
African
Jones.
American, let me get
Sorry.
in. An
I was just
African
naming a couple
American,
more.
okay, an African American of low income versus a white person of low income. They go out and commit the same crime. Do you believe our justice system treats them the same?
Um, what I'm smart enough to understand is based on how the state is ran. For example, marijuana. It's easy to compare. If I were to get caught with marijuana in Wisconsin, the trouble that I get into here, in comparison, that if I got caught smoking marijuana on the strip in Las Vegas. So you have to compare the demographics of where they're getting in trouble as well. And that sucks to say, and it's hard for a lot to understand, but it really is that because I know court systems that are very different based on where you're at inside of the USA. And that's the problem to me.
Okay. All right. So when you look at our system, there's no denying that there is a greater percentage, at least per capita, of African Americans that are incarcerated versus whites. Do you believe that if they're treating everybody very similar, do you
Right.
believe that it's just simply a problem that blacks do not know how to stop committing crimes?
I think that was a big problem of stuff like the crime bill that Biden had passed and some of the redlining in districts that allowed things to be so cheap, and then they allowed certain ways of life within those cities to where moving out of those cities means you're not as reliant on the
Well, wait a
government.
minute. You mentioned the
But
crime bill. When you mentioned the crime bill, do you believe the crime bill was a racist bill?
I think that when you design a bill that at the time is predominantly pushed by a certain race at that time in certain areas, because you've redlined those cities, you've made them almost impossible to live in, to where crime is pretty much the only way that people can make a good living because everything else there is destroyed. I think when you create that kind of environment and you stick a demographic there, then it gets labeled that you're looking at that. But Little Wayne, I'm sorry, but Little Wayne said it correctly. He said they wouldn't be. He doesn't want to call it right, but it's only logic that he goes to the hood because that's where crack cocaine is found. It's in the hood. So he wasn't wrong. He wasn't saying, "Hey, we're just out here being monsters." He's out here saying that the way you guys have made life for us to live, there isn't an option. And
And
that's
you
the
don't see any.
robbery.
You don't see any. Okay, if he's claiming that life has been made horrible for us to live, do you not see where he's alleging racism? Because somebody would have made that life for us that way.
Right. And I don't that's a good way of putting at it. Here's the at
Yeah,
the end
I
of the
guess
day,
the
here's my
point I'm trying to make is, I
go
guess
ahead.
the point I'm trying to make is, although you're speaking from a standpoint of equality, you're bringing up the crime bill and redlining. You're describing systemic racism while saying the system is you know, fairly equal. But you're actually describing racism while doing it.
I am talking about parts that do need to be fixed, and unfortunately those parts that I do mention are democratic, that they were democratic bills and democratic parties and democratic ran cities that are doing those things. And
Yeah,
so I hate to say that because then it does become a Republican versus Democratic thing when really it should be a what can we do to help? How can we find a way to help instead of labeling it for what it is? But as
yeah,
soon as we start saying whose fault it is, everybody who ever sided with a view of theirs now becomes your enemy. And that's the problem that we
that's true.
face.
All
And I don't
right.
like that. Like, I'm a Republican and I stand with Colin Kaepernick on his decision. The reasoning why, excuse me, the reasoning why is because he went to a decorated Navy SEAL. He went to an officer himself and said, I don't agree with XYZ, and how can I represent that? That officer told him that he could kneel. That's what he was given by a decorated officer. Now, as also a Republican who can't stand the way Antifa and the way things have just destroyed things ever since riots have become a thing, I would far, far, far choose something of Colin Kaepernick's decision than having riots happen all the time.
All
And I
right.
don't think that his kneel is standing for the people who are doing the rioting. I think his kneel is to bring awareness, like he said, in the only way that he could do it, in which he was
All right.
guided from an officer to do so.
And he was obviously championed heavy by the black community for doing just that. But Mentor King, I do got to move it on.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you coming in here. All right, good talk.
Thank you.
Get in the comments. Black Lives Matter, the biggest lie ever sold. That's it. That's coming from, looks like Jay in the comments. If you're saying that Black Lives Matter is the biggest lie ever sold, that can be interpreted to mean that anybody who is claiming that black lives actually do matter, that's a joke. It's the biggest lie you could have ever told. In reality, black lives don't matter at all. Understand how that could be interpreted. Bruh, They won't call what happened on January 6th as a riot, but peaceful Black Lives Matter protests were instantly. That is true. That is absolutely true. Even President Trump called the melee on January 6th a peaceful protest, a love fest of sorts, and Black Lives Matter is a terrorist outfit. So, yeah, I do agree there is some difference between that. Here's a very interesting comment. I have not did my research on it, so I'm going to go ahead and plead ignorance, but I've seen a couple clips before coming on live. In the comments, Uncle Elroy says, talk about the riot in Philadelphia over the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not completely knowledgeable of what happened. I've seen video clips of, looks like white people flipping over automobiles. I'm not privy enough knowledge to speak on it. But when we're talking about riots and looting, it is worth discussing. I just don't have enough information on it. All right, going back in the comments, or better at the box, we'll make it happen with Stir the Pot Master. I see Black Father in there. Stir the Pot.
Hello, handsome liberal Snuggles here. What's going on?
Oh, fair enough. Good to have you back. I like this name even better. Stir the Pot.
Yes.
So, did the Super Bowl has sporting events become too woke?
Yes, it has. You need to stop kneeling during the national anthem. We had the World War II Tuskegee Airmen, African American crew in World War II, served greatly for our country in the Air Force. So I don't want to hear about it. We should stand for our national anthem. And you want to know why? The military, there is no race, there is no color, there's no ethnicity, there's nothing. We don't leave no man behind. It doesn't matter what you are.
Let me respond to that.
It's disrespectful.
Let me respond to
the American flag.
Okay, responding to both of your questions. First of all, you mentioned the Tuskegee Airmen. The first issue I have with the Tuskegee Airmen is even though they served honorably quite well,
absolutely.
Most of them did not receive their awards or promotions until they were damn near dead or posthumously. So, in your secondary question of color does not matter in the military, if color does not matter, why is there so many heroic African-American soldiers did not receive medals or promotions until they were actually dead? Color clearly mattered.
To the awards. But when you're on the field, you leave no one behind. So don't give me that baloney. We don't leave anybody behind on the field. You tell me one person that says, oh, okay, well, you're black. I'm going to leave you on the war field because we're going to leave you behind. Or you're white. We're going to leave you behind because you're white. It's so stupid. Okay, we march in together. We come out together.
I think you were so focused on the insult you didn't hear the point I'm making. Let me give it to you again. If you and I are in a foxhole together, and you kill 10 enemies, and then I also kill 10 enemies, but they give you a promotion so that you're now in a position in an office somewhere where you no longer
your
have
award
to be,
today. Come on,
you got to let me finish talking.
Okay.
You can respond. I'll give you time.
Yes.
You and I are in a foxhole together. You kill 10 enemies. I kill 10 enemies.
Yes.
After we get back, you get a promotion so that you no longer have to be in foxholes. I'm still in foxholes now. So how is that not leaving me behind? I didn't get a promotion. I'm still in dangerous positions.
Handsome. Yeah. This is today. Get over it. This is today. We are living today. You get your promotion.
You brought up you said the Tuskegee Airmen. Now you're talking about today? Did you change?
Handsome, come on. You're a Gen X. You're me. Did we have these kind of problems? Give me a break. We had the best times in our life. Come on, handsome liberal. Don't tell me that you didn't have a good time back in the 80s and 90s. Come on now. Do we have any of these problems?
Wait a minute.
We are catering
let's go
to
with
the
what
weak
you said.
people of today. We are catering to weak people. Because they got emotions and they got a feeling. So we got to change things for people like transgenders. We got to change for them. What happened to this country? We all stood for the national anthem. What about Whitney Houston? Beautiful song, beautiful national anthem. They have weakened this nation. We have to cater. Talk about white privilege. Well, there's black privilege now because we got to cater to that now. Because CRT is now, we have to cater because we weren't born at that time. but we got to cater to it because
Okay,
it's
let me.
history.
You're throwing
It's
so much out.
catering.
I want to respond to some of it. Okay,
what?
wait. You're throwing so much out. I want to respond to some of your
Yeah,
points. You mentioned in the 80s and 90s when you and I grew up, were we not
absolutely.
okay? Okay, so in regards to the 80s and 90s, if
Right.
we were okay in the 80s and 90s, I want you to answer this. Why, if we were okay in the 80s and 90s,
We were.
why are there so many Republicans pointing to Joe Biden creating the crime bill in the 80s and 90s and saying it was racist as hell?
In the 80s and 90s, you and I just lived. We didn't even
You
look
didn't
at.
answer the
Tell
question
me
though.
you did. Tell me, handsome liberal. Did you honestly look at politics in the 80s or 90s, or did you just have fun? Did you wonder
No, I
which
looked at.
basketball team's going to win the championship? Come on, handsome.
I
We were
don't think you
breakdancing
quite
and we
answered.
had our boom
I don't.
boxes.
I don't think so. If there was nothing going on in the 80s and 90s that was racist, why are they bringing up the crime bill?
Right. Right. Exactly. Hold on. I got a customer, so that just walked in.
Doug,
Yeah.
I just want to ask, those your regular hours going to be? 10 to 3?
10 to 3.
All
Monday
right,
through Saturday.
we'll move
Yes.
it on. We'll have the guys work. I just wanted to, and I always enjoy talking to Snuggles. He's always welcome back. Looking in the comments, if he say handsome one more time, what's wrong with calling your boy handsome? Should I be called the ugly shit face? Would that help you out? The ugly Democrat or something like that? All right, looking in the comments, what 80s was death for ADOS? What is an ADOS? Guest doesn't have a clue, says the step wolf. Please move on to someone with more substance. K. Brown. Listen, I make it clear on the program. My program is MAGA friendly. MAGA are my preferred guests, but liberals are welcome too. One of the things I make the solemn promise that I don't ban, block, or censor anyone for their commentary. Although I did not agree with the last guest on anything, I respect his First Amendment free speech rights just as my own, which is why even though you may clearly hear me disagreeing with guests, I don't make a habit of cutting people off. Folks will ask all the time, what the hell do you have a MAGA hat up for? Well, the point is to let MAGA know, this is my shining light in the middle of the night, that this is a MAGA-friendly program. I honestly believe that MAGA, Republicans, conservatives, do not always get a fair play in the media. A lot of folks want them banned on site. I make the promise that I don't do that. So there is the reason for why the hat is there. By the way, folks, tap the screen. 800 plus of us in here. Show your boy some love. Get your boy up to 30,000. Helps out the algorithms. Indeed brings more MAGA to the program. But liberals are welcome as well. Real quick, going to the comment section. Okay, but not all opinions are equal in facts or reality. That is absolutely true, Mr. Walter White. Nevertheless, you can't censor someone because you don't believe their opinion is based on fact or reality. A lot of us on the left believe a $15 an hour minimum wage would help out the working class. They don't believe that's based on fact. A lot of us on the left, yeehaw, appreciate the hat and mustache. A lot of us on the left tend to believe that if we had some kind of common sense gun legislation, we wouldn't have all of these school shootings and shit. Folks on the right think that's not based in fact. So just understand, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you don't necessarily get to pick and choose who's speaking on fact versus opinion, because they think we're just as dumb as we often think they are. And I'm here to allow everybody to speak. Big Drip, appreciate that. Don't bring Snuggles back ever, Reggie. All right, let's go back to the comment section, or better yet, the box. We'll go to Black Father. Good afternoon, Black Father. You tell me, Black Father, there is no racism, no privilege, right?
Wrong. That is wrong. Yes. And I am, listen, man, I am a devout Republican, changed from Democrat. And I'm going to tell you why I do not.
When did you change? Real quick, when did you switch over?
I changed when I figured out about police brutality and where our people were being gunned down unjustly, unarmed, and who were running those cities. When I looked at 50 victims of blacks being gunned down, I look at who was running the cities. All right. The mayors are in direct control of the police. That's evident when you look at New Orleans when Hurricane Katrina happened. Mayor Ray Nagin was the head honcho, not
Right.
the federal government. So when we get out here protesting, blaming Trump and blaming other federal officials for the police actions in our cities, we're going after the wrong people. You have to go after your local official, which is the mayor. He can put out a order to stop all police from racial profiling. He's in control.
So do you believe Republican ran cities would be more fair to African Americans?
I think so. But when you look at what's going on now, it definitely isn't in our favor. You look at
I have to ask you, based on your opinion, and you're correct, most of this stuff does happen in Democrat-ran cities. After all, that's where we're mostly located. But Rudolph Giuliani is often known as the father of stop and frisk. Now, he clearly was a Republican in New York. I would also bring up Sheriff Joe Arpaio, that was ordering his deputies to stop anyone that was brown and demand paperwork to prove they're in the country. So I agree with you that most of the police issues happen in Democratic-ran cities, but I tend to think that's because most black people live in Democratic-ran cities. I mean, how many Republican mayors are over cities that have a hell of a lot of black people in it?
That's a good question for us, because who's putting them there? You look at Detroit, you look at Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. All of these cities have Democrat mayors who could put a stop to it. But yet we keep voting for the same people that's giving them the green light to do this to us. Tamir Rice, George Floyd, Philando Castile, all these cities had Democrat mayors in place at the time of their death.
So if, let's say I'm a Democrat and I'm starting to feel like you, whereas I see this happening in Democratic-ran cities, so I want a conservative mayor because I think there would be a better choice. I have to ask you two questions. First of all, why, during the time of police brutality, how are you supposed to look at the conservative side when they're waving around a thin blue line flag? And why are there no conservatives running on a platform that we're going to get cops to treat you fairly? I have never heard of a conservative running on a platform that we're going to end police brutality in this town.
Because it's political suicide for any politician to go against police. You look at the history, everybody's going to be for law and order, because majority of the voters are for law and order. The thing is, for anybody to try to go up against the police unions, it's political suicide. So it's up to the people to put an end to this. We have to put an end to this.
So if what you're saying is that going up against the police is going to could ultimately be the cause of political suicide, then how do you know getting rid of the Democrats and voting Republican is going to get you better results?
The thing is, what else have we tried? What else have we tried? How can we not hold accountable the people that we're putting in leadership? These people are you look at in Kentucky. What was her name? The one that they bust in the door, and Breonna Taylor.
Yeah.
That was a Democrat mayor, and they giving away our tax dollar to make it right with these families, jacking up the property taxes where we live. Look at Chicago, man. The average property taxes in Chicago is $13,000 per household. That is directly because the payouts for police misconduct.
Yeah.
It's all of us are suffering from it. Okay, and we need to talk about.
I guess the issue that baffles me, and I'm not here to pretend like Democrat cities do not have a significant amount of problems. However, where I tend to be baffled is the idea that I'm going to view Democrats as not getting us out of this mess with police and vote for Republican when I don't see any evidence on that. Now, if you said I'm voting independent or I'm sitting out elections, I can understand. But when I'm looking at the Republican side of the aisle and they're waving the thin blue line flag and they're talking about I support police, and I mean, all of their points lead me to believe they're not going to fix this stuff either. In fact, most Republicans deny there's even is a police brutality problem with black people.
Not this Republican. Not the Republicans I know.
Yeah,
not the black
I'm talking
Republicans
about your leadership. Yeah, I'm talking about your leadership.
I get what you're saying. And the thing is, like I said, for any politician to even utter that they're going to go against the police, bam, it's going to be political suicide. They're going to be misconstrued. They're going to get misunderstood. Just like you look, Governor DeSantis, all right? He denied the curriculum that brought up queer theory, the black curriculum they was trying to enter into high school there. Don't you know the black organizations down there called him a racist, then ended up having to apologize to him because when they looked at the curriculum, they found the same thing he found. Okay?
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
We need to quit thinking that see, Republicans are more I'm finding they're more constitutionalists. We want to go by the Constitution. Okay, that's what'll solve all of our problems right there. If we stick to the Constitution with the forefathers drafted, which I'm telling you, man, for them guys to have drafted such an important document so long ago really tells you the corruption that was really going on back then.
Yeah, but what I don't understand is this. We're talking about the founding fathers and drafting an awesome document to counter corruption while owning slaves. I don't see how they become the finer point in life. They were corrupt themselves.
Yeah, but that same document is what freed us too. We used that document to free us from slavery, to get us out of Jim Crow. I'm not saying that there wasn't some hypocrisy there. There was plenty of hypocrisy. But if we didn't have the document drafted, who's to say we wouldn't still be in slavery today?
I don't know, because when you look at the era of Jim Crow ending, which most would say the Civil Rights Act in 1964, and when you look at when the Constitution was adopted back in 1787, you're talking 200 years later. If it takes me 200 years to do something, I'm not going to thank what you created 200 years, because obviously that was not serving me very well. If I could live under slavery and Jim Crow for hundreds of years, that document is not what helped me get out of it. I would submit to you it is simply changing hearts and minds, such as putting on the front of a newspaper a grown-ass man using a German Shepherd to bite a little 8-year-old girl. It's stuff like that changed people's heart and minds. I don't think the Constitution did it at all.
It was that, along with the media coverage. It was that, along with the media coverage, and putting pressure on our leaders that, listen, this Constitution said this, that all men are created equal. Why aren't you doing it? And then coupled with that argument, that's what Martin Luther King was doing, and putting pressure on political leaders. Then on top of that, he organized campaigns like down in Birmingham when all that took place, and put it on the airwaves, put it on the TV screens, which caused outrage across America, that we have to honor the promise of the Constitution. I think all of it was a combination.
So how do you feel about people suggesting that the Republican Party is for white people?
I don't believe that. I think Republican Party is for less government in our lives. Just like we was talking about the guy that was talking about parenting and children. We have to get the government out of our families. All right. The government is participating way too much into governing what parents do with their children. We have to stop that. The reason why parents don't discipline their children today is because an organization that exists in every state called CPS. All right, this is a reality that when you want to punish and you want to discipline, not punish, but you want to discipline your children the way you see fit, you're going to have to answer to a state official if you don't do it within their realm, within their rules.
Because you mentioned Martin Luther King, and we were talking, I mean, obviously yourself being a black conservative, and I asked you about, how do you feel about people saying it's a white man party? I want you to hear this clip. It's maybe 40, 50 seconds. I want you to listen to this and give me your opinion on it.
Okay.
During a Sunday service at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, where Reverend Martin Luther King was once a pastor. King appeared on Face the Nation in May of 1964 when he was working along with President Johnson to get the Civil Rights Act passed.
Dr. King, in light of recent statements of Senator Barry Goldwater and, in some cases, Richard Nixon, do you think there is a real danger of the Republican Party becoming the white man's party in this country?
I think this is a real danger, and I've talked with some Negro Republicans who are very concerned about this. I see trends and developments which will reveal that unless the liberals of the Republican Party take play a much more decisive role in leadership positions, this will become a white man's party. And I think this would be tragic for the Republican Party as well as tragic for the nation.
What do you think about him saying that?
Well, the truth behind it is when you look at the prior civil rights acts, they were actually drafted by Republicans. And historically, the Republican Party was the party of abolitionists. All right. It was created to free slaves. Okay. Now, the thing is, now we're coming up on 1964. Now there's going to be a battle for the black vote. And when Lyndon Baines Johnson signed that Civil Rights Act, he said, we're going to have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 300 years. He said that.
Yeah, but that's the question I'm asking you. Someone like Martin Luther King, as savvy as he is, why do you think he felt like the party that he was part of, because he too was a black Republican at the time, why do you think he felt his party was turning white around him?
Because, you know, we're looking at who is going to be supporting this legislation to end racial bigotry within our systems of government. Okay.
So, do you believe the claim that is often made that when the Republican Party started looking to work with Martin Luther King, a lot of the racist Democrats jumped parties because they didn't want to, well, better yet, when the Democratic Party, because that's who gave us civil rights, when the Democratic Party began working with Martin Luther King under John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson, a lot of the racist Democrats, obviously the party of slavery, abandoned that party because they were now looking to give black civil rights, and they switched over to the Republican Party. Do you believe those claims are true?
I believe some of it is true. Yes, I believe some of it is true. But when you look at the policies afterwards, none of the Democratic policies have favored blacks. When you look at how the black communities have turned out, when you look at welfare destroyed blacks. Mm-hmm. Welfare broke up the black family. What has Democrat policies really done for us? Look at our cities, man. Look at where we live.
Okay, yeah, but you're asking the party that gave you the right to vote to begin with, you're saying that party has done nothing for you. You're admitting that the racists likely went to the Republican Party, but the policies of the racist party have been better for us?
The policies of the racist party. Were you talking about Democrats?
I'm talking about what Martin Luther King is saying, is that the racist Democrats, because the Democratic Party is looking to give us civil rights, the racist Democrats are abandoning that party and coming over to the Republican side. That's what he's talking about, is beginning to become the white man's party. Why is he saying that?
I have no idea. I'm sure there's some validity to it. I'm sure there were some whites that were in the Democrat. You got Strom Thurmond was one of them. All right, he jumped ship from the Democrat Party and went Republican. But far as I know, far as politicians are concerned, he was the only one that changed. He was the only one.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
So when you look at this thing, man, you look at Democrat policies, look at our cities, man. Look at you got black single mothers, for instance, right? Say these black single mothers try to get off of welfare and try to get a job, get a career, right? This is how they keep us in the bad stuff. These women will get a good job. Well, their Section 8 is still in place. Well, they have to report what they're making now. Now they're just getting out of the welfare system, trying to climb out, and they get threatened. If you make some money,
the people you're
make
talking
some money,
about,
we're gonna take your Section 8 away from you. And that's how.
Oddly enough, it's interesting. I get what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree. But all of the black women I notice in my family, none of them getting Section 8. They all got jobs. I don't know anybody that is worried about losing their Section 8. They all are working just like you and me.
That's not how it was in the 80s, man. In the early 90s, that's not how it was. Okay.
So what about in today's society? You think because right now it looks like it's going to be Trump versus Biden in a rematch. You believe Trump is better for African Americans than say Biden?
Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I hope he run with DeSantis. I'm voting that across the board, man. I don't even mess with Democrats. No, because you know what? I had this Democrat commissioner that's over my district here in my county. All right. Mm-hmm. I petitioned her. I said, listen, we need cameras in every courtroom in this city so blacks can get a fair trial, can get fair representation, so we can have means to appeal. You know, she ignored me. She ignored me. These are the kind of people. These are the kind of people we put in place. But she pushed that COVID stuff. She was all over COVID. But when it comes to actually instituting things that's going to help blacks get a fair shake in the judicial system, which is very important, she was nowhere to be found. These are the kind of scoundrels we have in office.
It's interesting you would say that, because most folks on the Republican side of the aisle already believe we're getting a fair shake. I do got to move it on, though, Black Father. Appreciate
I don't believe that. This is the reason I became a Republican, to make a difference. Because being over on the Democrat side, they ain't doing nothing for us, man.
You may find a lot of resistance, but good luck. Hopefully you are able to succeed in that endeavor. Is this our first time talking?
Yeah, first time, yes.
Great. Appreciate it. Good conversation. You're welcome back anytime, man.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. Good talk. All right. Look at the comment section. So he became a Republican to control people. Hopefully not. What legislation has Republicans sponsored? In regards to what are you asking? What legislation have Republicans sponsored that would favor African Americans? I wish he was on. He probably could have answered that. By the way, folks, tap the screen. 35,000 likes is very possible. As I say all the time, this is a MAGA friendly program. You just seen an African American MAGA or Trump supporter. They're always welcome here. Let the name steer you not. I don't ban, block, or censor anyone for their commentary. If this is what you enjoy, civilized dialogue from both sides of the aisle, feel free to follow the program. Let me go straight to the box. Appreciate you folks holding on. We'll keep it going. J.P. Parker, number 7, friend of the program. Welcome back, Mr. Parker. He watches Fox News. I watch Fox. I'm liberal, but I do enjoy Fox News. Been watching them for about 25 years, I think. Parker, good afternoon. Parker, can you hear me? All right, well, looking in the comments real quick. Why are we not worrying about American communities? Because there's nothing to gain in that. That's very similar to the argument, as opposed to sending money to the Ukraine, we could be helping out the homeless or veterans. Although Russia just went into the Ukraine in February of last year, and there was plenty of homeless and veterans not being treated right. We don't care about those people. If the Russian-Ukrainian event ended today, and we stopped sending any money over there and everything went back to normal, you think America would suddenly want to send $40 million to the homeless? No. It would go right back to the age-old phrase, who's going to pay for that? That's why we don't care about communities, is because it doesn't help out those who have. They don't want to do anything with it. As Money Baby is saying, it's not our problem. That's what people say. All right, let me go back to the box. We'll keep it moving with money shots. I like that. The last guy is going for the silk spot. You talk about the late Silk of Diamond and Silk. He's suggesting that my last caller is trying to replace Silk. That's funny. If you like the Fox News, they are a bunch of racist people. They don't care about black and brown people. JSR, I don't buy that every personality on Fox is racist, because some of them are African Americans themselves. But I'm not going to pretend like there's not a lot of racially sensitive shit said on Fox News. There are certain hosts on Fox News, in my humble opinion, that have a low opinion of black people. So I'm not going to totally disagree with that, but you can watch left-wing networks, and there are guests that have a low opinion of white people. It happens. I was trying to bring on a guest. Looks like Money Shots is frozen. We'll keep it moving with Karen Green, 5316. I don't know, TikTok is not playing fair today. Can you cash at me? I'm struggling. How are you struggling with a smartphone? Tell that phone talk. Good afternoon. Who do I have here?
It's me. You said my name.
Oh, Karen. I can't. Yeah, for some reason, TikTok does not have you in the box. Okay. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I wanted to just elaborate on when he said, about the Republicans. He's not really elaborating on how they have been voting And you have all Republicans voted for the A31 bill, and that is to put racist, like the Proud Boys, the KKK, different people, into police agencies and departments, and also our military.
Wait a minute. You're saying that a bill was proposed that specifically
No,
stated
no,
Proud
no.
Boys.
No. I'm saying a bill was passed. A bill was passed, and it's 831, and it allows police. It allows these people to be in our police departments, white supremacists, and you had the Proud Boys that was training the police department. So how can he say
The
that he's
question
a
I'm trying to find out,
Republican?
what is the language in that bill that, I mean, does it specifically state the Proud Boys should be allowed to be in police departments? How did that happen?
They voted for it, and it happened.
Okay, I'm not aware of that bill. I would be curious to see. I mean,
I
somebody
think
actually put.
but it's been passed. It's not just, it didn't just get passed today. It's been passed, which I contribute that to being a big part of all of these police shootings and killings and things that's going on in our communities. And you have the all of the hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, you have all of the Republicans voted for the Roe versus Wade. You know,
Well, the Roe versus Wade is the
I know what it
evangelical
is.
base of the right does not want a woman having an abortion. I understand that, but this bill with the Proud Boys, what is this bill that you're talking about? And by the way, folks, I understand there's something wrong where you can't. Can you see me on the screen, Karen?
Yeah, you're talking a little loud though. I can hear you well. You're talking really loud.
Okay, for some reason, folks are suggesting they cannot see me, so I don't know what the hell's going on.
I can see you and I
TikTok.
can hear you.
Yeah, you can see me, but everybody else is saying they cannot see me. So, okay, now I see you just popped up in the box. Maybe something will change because it's something on the side of TikTok. But okay, so what is this bill that was passed?
I just told you. It's
Give it
called,
to
you
me.
want to write it down? It's called the
Yeah.
831. It's 831. This bill was passed and through the Supreme Court, and they voted on this bill, and it's was voted that these groups could could enter our police departments and our military.
Okay, fair enough. Like I said, I'm willing to plead ignorance. I do oftentimes learn a lot from you folks. This one I have not heard of, and I'm curious to see what the language of the bill was. Did it specifically state letting these so-called white supremacist groups in there,
Yeah,
or was there some other language that allowed them to slip
there
through the
was,
cracks? I'm curious to
was
see
no
how it was
language.
worded.
It was Latin language, and so um, that's what was voted on, and that's what we have. I think that's what we're dealing with today.
All right, fair enough. Appreciate you coming through. I got to move it on, Karen. Come on back to anytime.
Okay.
All right. Now, like I said, times I do learn things from many of you guests. And by the way, tap the screen, make your boy up to 40,000. I would appreciate that. I have not heard of this, the 831 bill. I'm very curious. I will look it up right after ending the broadcast. I want to find out the wording of it because the way she made it sound, it sounds controversial as hell. But yeah, I'm curious to see how it went down. Looking in the comments, or better yet, the box. I don't know what happened with money shots. We'll keep it moving with Esther K. We started out talking about professional sports, whether it's talking about race, religion, or gender. In regards to the Super Bowl, have they went too far? Esther, good afternoon.
With race in the Super Bowl? Well,
Yeah,
well,
I'll give you an example.
I kind of was scrolling through TikTok and ran up on your commentary. I've never seen you before, and I'm glad that you're willing to go on and look at that bill she was speaking on because it is true. With that said, in the position of being African American, I do not really think a Democratic Party or a Republican Party really benefit us because the young gentleman you had before talking about the
Right.
Constitution still lists us as 3/5 human. So until we can take that out of the Constitution, it's no way any law can be in our favor
Right. Yeah.
collectively. I really feel that we need a whole different party that represent America for what the fabric of what the intentions of the forefathers meant for it to be in the beginning. Slavery put it on a discourse of money, greed, and abuse. And I don't care what people say about this country, that is the bottom line. It came to the bottom line of people being greedy, and they use Black people backs, lives to make this country functional. So, with that said, racism is even taught. We can't get rid of it when people come from other countries to get their citizenship. They have their view of Black people and who we are in this country based on what Fox News, CNN put on news every day throughout this country, no matter what city you in. Black on black crime, which it does exist, white on white crime that does exist at the same percentage rate. But because we make exceptional news, because people can look down on us, it gets the ratings, it gets the views, and it gets someone to say, look, we're better than them. And unfortunately, it don't matter how much education you have. It don't matter if you went to college or not. When you get pulled over or asked questions, you still a Black man and you still a Black woman. And that
So
what
you
we can't,
do.
that
I
what
had
we
a
cannot run
I
from.
had a
We
caller
cannot
on
run from it.
earlier. Yeah, I had a caller on earlier that was suggesting that mistreatment by police or citizens happens to all groups equally. So you do
No,
believe we face a harsher judgment, a
exactly.
harsher criticism? Yeah.
I feel that we face a harsher judgment based on the history and the tone that's already been set before me and you were born.
Yeah.
You cannot change how a person has grown up in this country and their parents taught them beforehand.
So
I'm
let me
not
ask
going to
you
change.
something.
I'm a registered nurse. I'm a
I
registered nurse.
wanna
I
I
cannot
wanna ask
change.
you a question. I want to
Mhm.
ask you a question because I'm seeing a lot of pushback in regards to the Memphis incident where you had 5 Black officers on a Black civilian. There are folks who are suggesting that those officers acted in a racially charged manner, that racism was at
And they
play.
did. And let me tell you why I feel, because they knew they would get away with it. Because guess what? White people been getting away with it. White police officers been getting away with it. This is the same system that protects them. But how quickly did they prosecute these guys? It
Fast.
wasn't so fast. So for people to say racism do not exist, I don't care. We done had cameras on people. George Floyd, that went through a whole month trial
Yeah.
situation. These men was prosecuted within days. Within days. And then people want to say racism does not exist. Where was the cover that the police officers got for the guy who killed George Floyd, or Tamir Rice, or any other Black person that was killed on television and that was filmed? I'm talking about filmed incidents. The only
Now
thing that makes
I gotta throw this out at you because this is straight out of the comments. Nebula 1127 is saying that the reason those Memphis officers faced justice far more quicker, according to his comment, is
Mhm.
because there was overwhelming evidence that they were obviously in the wrong. How do you respond to that?
Okay. What is more wrong of someone sticking their knee on someone's neck for 8 minutes?
I just had to let you answer that.
I mean, seriously, I don't care. It should be the same energy, the same gravitas to protect police officers, no matter what they did until the trial is went through. But because no one didn't want to smoke behind police
Yeah.
brutality, they quickly hung those Black guys out, and they deserved it. I'm not justifying that they didn't deserve it. They did deserve what they got, every bit of it, because they should have been more mindful of what they were doing because they were Black. But because they're indoctrinated in a system that they know they're going to get, it's just like abuser. I'm going to abuse my wife, and I'm going to tell the police officers that she's crazy. Because it was back in the day where white men used to admit their wives to the psych ward just to marry another woman. That's
Damn,
how
that
we had asylums all over this country.
pimping was pretty easy back then. Let me ask you this
Exactly.
straight out of the comments. User 200 says, obey commands and that shit doesn't happen. Talking about police brutality. How do you feel when folks say if blacks just obeyed the law, they wouldn't have these problems?
Well, half the time, majority of the time, blacks are pulled over and didn't need to be pulled over in the beginning. Because I cannot help what your perception of me is when you see me. I cannot help that you're intimidated, that I may have a gun, that I may harm you. And that comes from years of you knowing how your
Yeah.
people have treated our people. That's a fear that you have, that I feel that some cops indoctrinate in themselves, and they in these roles and want to do good and mean to get good. And I think mean to do good in the public sector, and then they get anxious and scared because the fear of blackness is my your skin is more threatening than their gun that they have on their hip.
Damn. All right, Esther, you kind of remind me of Public Enemy's song "Fear of a Black Planet." Hey, listen, anytime, I'm glad you found me. Feel free to come on back through. I always put you in. I
I
appreciate your
have one
opinion.
other comment that I want to make.
Go
The
ahead and make it.
guy
Wrap it up.
the guy said that about slavery. When it comes to slavery, to be honest, what helped us in slavery was the simple fact that white men were going with black women and having children and developing relationships. That's the only thing that
The power
really
of
freed
the
us.
pussy. The power of the pussy. All right, girl.
The power of the pussy, baby. That's what freed us. That's
Got
what
that
freed us.
good.
Because
Nothing wrong with that.
we were milking other women children, and they love the affinity and learn how to love black people.
All
And if it
right, girl.
wasn't for that, we would still be in slavery, honey.
Shit, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be paying child support. But I gotta go. Catch you later.
All right,
Good
bye.
talk. All right. Found me. Always, it's always good to hear both sides of the aisle. Like I said, liberals are welcome on the program as well. People who lean left. Now, I'm not going to refer to Esther as a liberal because she did point out there are flaws with both sides of the aisle. So she would probably fall in the middle somewhere, more of an independent. Many would say she leans left. And obviously, a lot of folks believe pointing to any sort of racism or brutality is going to make you lean left because oftentimes folks on the right deny it exists. Now, the caller before her, though, an African American that was a Republican, was readily admitting that racism, particularly among police, is alive and well in this country towards blacks. That's a very unique caller. I don't think I've had many Republicans come on that openly admit that police do treat blacks more differently. It's generally they treat us the same, or more whites get shot, and that's what you generally hear. So that was different. All right, let me look in the comment section. RT or TT Rio said, I like her. I liked her too. I always like the strong, passionate opinions on both sides of the aisle. And that's why I always make the solemn promise that I don't ban, block, or censor anyone for their commentary. I value your opinion just as much as my own. And oftentimes I am able to learn things in the process. We can exchange information. Hopefully I can enlighten you on things and vice versa. In the comments, the A31 bill, while me and the last caller were conversing, I saw folks suggest that the A31 bill, after looking it up, did not fit the narrative that the caller was saying in regards to the Proud Boys and things like that. I haven't had time to do any research on it, but I saw somebody in the comments that was suggesting that 831 bill was not about letting the Proud Boys on the police. So we'll see what I find out on it. Never, people look at the crimes of the area where all the police abuse happens. Cookie Monster 304. Well, if you look at the crimes of the area where all the police abuse happens, it's generally going to be low-level crimes, prostitution, robbery, the shit that happens in the hood. And is that simply due to the belief that blacks commit more crimes? Or might it be due to the fact that these are easier people to abuse? I know this individual does not have a lawyer. I know there's no powerful political member in their family or somebody I got to worry about. I mean, there are certain members among society that make better victims, such as a lot of cops have been caught over the years assaulting prostitutes because nobody's going to believe a prostitute was assaulted. So if a cop gets horny and you see a prostitute walking down the street, you bring her over there because she's already committing a crime. So she has to come to you, and then you can assault her. If she goes down and reports it, well, you got a whole record, whole data sheet that shows you sell your body for money. How the hell are we supposed to believe this sworn decorated officer would stoop down to that level? And a lot of them know that. So some members of our society just make better people to victimize. You think the cops don't know that too? Going back to the box. It is. We'll go to Preacher, SL, and Lyndon. I do see you in it. By the way, folks, tap the screen. Let's make 50,000 likes happen. There's 500 plus of you in here. You could be anywhere on social media. Do appreciate the fact you're rolling with your boy. Once again, it looks like TikTok may be presenting a problem because I don't see my last caller coming back up. You better be careful making all that sense. You know, I appreciate that compliment. Manny the Fresh, shout out to the hot boys down in New Orleans. In regards to making sense, I get a lot of folks on the right that tells me I'm the dumbest thing they've ever seen on TikTok. So some folks, my opinions resonate with. Other folks think I'm the greatest idiot on social media. Nevertheless, I don't ban any of them for speaking. You better, looking at the comments, as far as simply something down the street, I don't get your comment there, Noel. A rally turns into death. MAGA doesn't tip and don't do likes. Okay. When was America great, says MDJ. In regards to the common question, when was America great? My response right off the bat would be it depends on what group of people you're referring to. I would submit to you from a minority standpoint, there's no better time in American history than right now. Every period we have gained rights, freedoms, liberties, and things like that. So for minorities, there's no better period than now. However, from the perspective of being white, particularly a white male, it's probably the worst right now that it's ever been. Not saying that you don't have a fair shake being a white male, but if you've been on top and had the country, the world to yourself, having to share things and deal with equality can feel like oppression. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just simply stating that if, let's say, for instance, I'm a white male and I want to apply for the position of a school principal. I know that the only people that can compete with me are other white males. After the Civil Rights Act, now I got all of this new competition. Things have essentially gotten worse for me. That's just the way it is. I got to compete with people that I didn't normally used to have to compete with. So for white males, to some degree, things have gotten worse if you just look at it on a technical scale. And that is why you often see a lot of white males complaining, suggesting that, I don't want to be replaced by such and such. I think they call it the replacement theory or something like that. I was on top. Now that I'm not as strong of a minority, other groups are starting to get close, and I might have a fear that they may do to me what my ancestors done to them. There's a lot of people who believe that. All right, looking in the comment section, or better at the box, we'll go straight to Lyndon Mack. Hopefully this one allows it to happen. 1020 Jackson, Mississippi is raw. You got to elaborate more on that. Mississippi Bill 1020, white only and separate justice system, white jurors, judges, defendants. Mississippi Bill 1020. Is that something recent? Good afternoon. Who do I have on here? Do I have a guest on here? Okay, for some reason the guest box has really become defective. Somebody's in here and I can't even see the individual. What rights do white people have that black people do not? I don't believe any. I do not believe white people have any official rights that blacks do not have. Now, it's a difference between what's on the books and what is actually enforced. Depends on where you're at in the country, but I do believe for Caucasians, particularly straight white Christian males, the country is not as beneficial to them as it used to be. Because, like I stated, they now have to compete with all of these other entities, which is also why I often suggest that if you are a Republican politician, I believe your job is significantly easier than a Democratic politician. Because a Republican politician only, for the most part, caters to straight white Christian males. They're not catering to LGBT or, feminists or, all of these other groups, African Americans and Ben Crump types. They're not even, those folks should get in line behind the conservative ideals and values or get left. Whereas the Republican Party is catering to that one group. So I do believe it is far easier to be a Republican politician than a liberal politician, because you don't have to worry about all of that shit. All right, let me go back in the box. Unfortunately, something is going on with the box, so I'm having a hard time bringing people up. We'll try with Out of the Matrix. I don't know what the hell's going on. So let's see here. If it works. Okay, I do see Out of the Matrix coming up. Biden is a hero. He is smart, and Ukraine will defeat Putin. Out of the Matrix, you think Ukraine's going to defeat Putin?
No, I didn't see what the topic was today. I just heard what you said. I agree with you. Republican politicians have an easier job, but for a different reason. I think that Democrat politicians have a harder job because Democrat voters tend to want more from their government, where Republican voters just want them to simply protect our rights and stay out of our business. So their job's easy. It's pretty easy to cater to those needs as opposed to all the wants and needs of the Democrat Party and their voter base.
Well, if you are a Republican politician and you do not believe two men should be able to marry each other, how is that protecting our rights to stand out of our business?
What Republican politician in 2023 advocates for that in any meaningful way that's ever going to pass the House? You have a few fringe members who still hold on to that old hard bridge, but overall, we're talking about the voters. The voters simply don't give a shit. We want them to protect our rights, stay out of our business and our pockets as much as humanly possible. Outside of that, we don't want nothing from our government.
Well, if you are a Republican politician and you do not believe a female that is a victim of sexual assault should be able to have an abortion, how are you protecting her rights to stand out of her business?
Well, that's states' rights. That's why Roe v. Wade was overturned. And that's the great thing about the United States of America, because you can vote with your feet. If you don't like the state's laws, you can move to a state that compensates you. And that's what makes America so great. You can vote with your feet just like you can vote with your actual vote.
So you believe the Republicans want the government to stay out of people's business on the federal level, but if a state wants to be in your business, you're okay with that. You should just move out of that state.
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole premise of the United States Constitution in regards to states' rights, is that each state wanted to make sure. That's why the Electoral College exists. Each state wanted to make sure that their interests were served, and it wasn't population based. Because if that was the case, California and New York would decide the fate of the entire United States of America.
Right.
At the federal level. And that's not the way the founders designed it. They were able to see far enough into the future how that could become a problem or an issue or create turmoil. And that's why you can vote with your feet. If you don't like the state's laws that you live in, move.
Yeah, I hear the states' rights argument from folks on the right a lot, and I understand it. I think the whole issue, though, is the reason us liberals do not often like states' rights is because generally, anytime you hear a state talking about, I don't want the federal government in our business, we want to have the right to do what we want to do, it's generally to take somebody's rights away. I've not heard too much where a state is trying to push back against the federal government so that its citizens can have more rights. It's usually because they want to take away a freedom from one of their citizens. That's usually what they're.
So you think that I think Ron DeSantis comes to mind. He's pushed back at the federal government nonstop, but since his first election and this last election, he's pushed back. Whether it's COVID mandates, vaccine mandates, you name it, he's pushed back at the federal level. So I would disagree with
Yeah,
that.
but there are also people that are suggesting that Ron DeSantis is squelching the African American vote in the state as well.
Do you think he is? He won by 17 percentage points.
I believe all states get involved in gerrymandering. Do I believe that there's some gerrymandering in Florida? Yeah, I definitely do.
Yeah, I mean there probably is to some degree, just about everywhere for each political party's gain or loss. Depending on what their initiative is. You can see that in New York. You can see that in New York where the Democrats know where their strong voting bases is, and when they redistrict New York, look what they did. They did it in their favor, and then a federal court overturned that. So
let me present it to you this way in regards to states' rights, and let us do what we want to do in our state as opposed to somebody else coming from a different state. How do you feel about Ron DeSantis using the taxpayers' money of his state to bus illegal immigrants from a state that he did not live in to another state that he did not live in? He bused illegal immigrants from Texas to Martha's Vineyard up in the New England area at the cost of Floridians' tax money. They didn't get any benefit out of that at all.
He did benefit for it. This is how, right? He did it before the election, right? And yet, if it was such a gross turnoff, or the Floridians had a problem with it, they wouldn't have reelected him by 17 percentage points. He did that prior to the election. So I would say that if it bothered the Floridians, then they wouldn't have reelected him.
Yeah, but I got MAGA that come on the program all the time and say that Trump's tweets bother them. They still vote for him, no? He may still have been better than his competition, but that doesn't mean they weren't pissed off that he was wasting their tax dollars.
Well, let's see. He finished off the 2020 fiscal year with the biggest surplus in Florida history, despite having spent, and then if you look at the surplus in Florida that they have going on right now, it clearly didn't hurt their bottom line any.
But their bottom line could have been even better. Are you telling me that there was some kind of net benefit to the state of Florida by using their tax dollars to bust illegal immigrants from Texas up?
No, there wasn't, but his fiscal responsibility allowed for that not to hurt a single thing to their bottom line. I don't know. So I think it was a political theater. I think it was a political stunt to rally his base. It was red meat for them. While I don't agree with it, I think it was necessary because the federal government is not paying attention to border towns whatsoever. And the only way for them to actually take notice and start to do anything, which is why Title 42 is still being upheld right now, is because of those shenanigans by Abbott and Ron DeSantis by sending those immigrants to their doorsteps and saying, here, you got to deal with it. Look what's going on in New York City right now. You just had the immigrants who were staying in 5-star luxury hotels throw a fit when they got kicked out and sent to a regular enclosure with basic beds and basic bare necessities. Now they're starting to see what the border towns have been dealing with under Joe Biden's presidency, and they don't like it much. So, if you want to advocate that you're going to be a free city and you're going to do this and you're going to do that, now it's on your doorstep. You don't get to talk about it from 2,000 miles away. Now you got to deal with it. So I agreed with that move.
So how do you feel about President Trump suggesting that Ron DeSantis is a groomer of underage women?
We're going to see how that plays out here, man. I think that ultimately my vote's going to go to Trump no matter what. So long as he, ends up winning the nomination, that's who's going to get my vote.
How would you feel if there was zero evidence that Ron DeSantis ever groomed underage women? Would you still support Trump even if it appears he made that up?
Well, we're going to find out. I mean, I don't want to.
That's what I'm asking. I'm saying, what if you actually find out that he made it up? Would you still support him?
Would I still support Trump if I found out that he made up these claims on Ron DeSantis? First off, I want to say, for full transparency, I hadn't heard that he made these claims, so I'm taking you at your word that he's made these claims. That being said, no, I would have no problem condemning him, but I would still support him for president of the United States, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, if you go on Google or any Bing or whatever search engine you use and just type in Trump truths, can't even say the word because he didn't tweet it. He used his own site, the Truth Network. Trump truths out that Ron DeSantis is a groomer. You'll see the picture and his comment under there. So yeah, this happened, I think, Wednesday or Thursday of last week. So it's not this is where you get the difference in media. Whereas if Joe Biden does something with Hunter Biden, for instance, you see it on Fox, you won't see it on MSNBC. Well, the right wing media, with Trump making a huge accusation, essentially saying that Ron DeSantis is a pedo, the right wing media virtually did not cover that story at all. And that's
Yeah,
a
it'll be interesting to
colossal.
see. Listen, I have no problem censoring a president when he's out of line, but in regards
Yeah.
to the policies and the way that America was ran like a business under Trump's 4 years, I don't give a shit because every single one of those politicians says nasty shit, does nasty things, but most of them never deliver results that benefit the American people. So again, Trump is not somebody that I want to go drink with, go on the golf course with, hang out with. I want his policies. All the other stuff to me is just noise. I want the results of his
Do you
policies.
think he's
That's
the
it.
only one that could give us those policies?
He's the only one that's ever stood up and said things that are right. He's never been politically correct, and I appreciate that about him. When he goes on and he challenges people in his own party, I've never seen that out of a president that are willing to publicly oust members of their party in order to get their agenda pushed forward. Whenever someone
in the comments you were asked, and I'll pass the comment on. Somebody said what policies. I think I can't pronounce the name, but what policies of Trump did you really favor that nobody else has really did?
So his foreign policies, the Abraham Accords that he was able to garner in the Middle East, I like that. I like the fact that when it came to Bashar al-Assad, it wasn't empty threats like what happened under Barack Obama. He literally shot 47 Tomahawk missiles at the Air
Wait a
Force
minute.
Base.
You really think that shooting those, it was actually 60 of them and 59 hit. You really think those Tomahawks that he sent over to Syria, where we announced that they were coming, and they only had a net casualty rate of only 6 people. It did not get Russia out of Syria. It did not stop any of the conflict in Syria at all. You really think something came out of that of any benefit to the United States at all?
Well, he didn't gas any men, women, or children. It was the breaking of the Geneva Convention that caused Trump to take that action. And since then, to the best of my knowledge, Bashar al-Assad has not broke the Geneva Convention since then. And I remember
They just had an earthquake. They just had an earthquake 10 days ago over in Syria, and Assad has that country so locked up we can't even send them aid. No, he's not gassing people, but he's still killing them. They're still being greatly mistreated. So I don't see where the benefit.
Yeah, but it's not our job. It's not our job to police the world. That's another stance that he took that I like. But when it came to breaking international norms, he had no problem stepping up to the plate and taking decisive action, like taking out that Air Force base that was responsible for the origins of that chemical attack. So, there's one thing to enforce international norms and treaties that we have internationally, and there's another thing to move in and try to right the wrongs of humanitarian crises that are happening within these long embroiled countries that have long been plagued by civil war. So,
see, I don't. You're talking about international norms while at the same time saying you liked he didn't try to play the world's police. In other words, you can shoot and kill people any way you want, but if you gas them, then I got to step in because they're violating international norms all day, every day over there. But as long as they don't gas the people while doing it, you're okay. He's okay with it.
See, that's what I'm trying to tell you, right? So, there's nothing we can do about embroiled civil wars, right? There's nothing we can do about that, right? They have their own sovereignty. But when you break the Geneva Convention and you're using gases that have long been outlawed on the battlefield, and you allow that to happen with no consequences, that opens up other people to say, America is weak. They didn't do anything when this happened. Trump didn't play that shit. It was like, I'm not going to go in there and be the savior for the humanitarian crisis, but I will not allow
I don't see how that benefits. I don't see how that. I mean, I can line you guys up against a wall and use a Gatling gun and mow you all down. But if I use mustard gas, now you're pissed off. I mean, dying is dying. You're making it sound like
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
you're setting when you're talking about precedents with something like that. There's what treaty is there in place right now between America and Syria that says that we have a right to intervene based on what they have going on in their civil war? There isn't, but there is a Geneva Convention in place that everyone signed on to and said these things are outlawed from the battlefield, and so we have a right to put a fucking stop to that and stop it dead in its tracks. So I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying it's any more or
Yeah,
any less atrocious.
you're giving them accolades for something that, in my opinion, is meaningless. Because, like I said, if as long as Assad is using, regular, what do you call it, full metal jacket rounds or NATO rounds, he can shoot as many of his people as he wants.
It's
Trump is
about
only going to
precedent.
step in, but if you use mustard gas, then we're going to step in and send tomahawks over here. So I'm okay with you killing your own people. Just don't use gas to do it, which is meaningless to the victims over there. That means nothing. You just said, don't kill them that way. That,
I'm not,
I don't see. I don't
it's
see the
about the
benefit of that.
idea, because if Bashar can get away with using them there, then and that goes on check, that he can get away with using them in other people's countries, right? So
Why
what's going
not?
on behind his own borders? It's sad. It's unfortunate. If someone had a magic wand that they can shake and make all of that hurt and pain that they're going through because of that dictator they have running their country go away, I don't think there's a single human on earth that wouldn't shake that magic wand in a heartbeat. But that wasn't the reason for Trump taking that decisive action. It was because America had to make a broken promise, and Barack Obama had drawn a red line and said that he would act if we sent the United Nations in, which we did under gunfire, and Barack did not do anything at all to Bashar al-Assad. When Trump came in, it was a different president, a different sheriff in town, and he did take decisive action to prevent the use of those gases being used in someone else's.
I don't see. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Unlike Obama drawing a red line, Trump took action when they used gases. But in my opinion, even though Trump took a stance when they used gas, no one benefited because you're okay with them using alternative means to execute their own people. So at the end of the day, okay, you stopped him. That would be like stopping Adolf Hitler from gassing J people, but allowing him to shoot them. How does
You're
that
not
help
you're not
anybody?
you're not understanding what I'm saying, right? That civil war hasn't spread over into other countries. It's not right. What's going on over there is not right, but it's not our place as Americans to go and
That
intervene
ain't the
wherever
point
there's
I'm at. That's not what I get what you're saying,
well,
but that's not what I'm. That's not where I'm
yeah,
taking it. I'm simply saying that
if he
you're
uses
giving
gas
Trump.
there with no
Okay,
consequences,
the point I'm trying to make is you're giving Trump credit for something that benefited no one. That's what I'm saying.
that deters future ambitions of
How do
Bashar
you
al-Assad.
know? How do you know
Well,
that?
because he knows that we're not willing to step in, overstep our boundaries for this, but we definitely will for that. If we'll do it in your own borders of your own country's sovereignty, imagine what we'll do to you, Bashar al-Assad, if you try to take that same energy to somebody else's country. It sets precedent. And
Here's why I disagree with that. Here's why I think you're wrong on the deterrent argument. Okay, Trump steps in when they use gas. According to you, that lets people know if you use gas, America will step in. Yet you just admitted the president before Trump allowed him to do that and did not respond. So all this would let our adversaries know is one U.S. president may act differently than the next. All they got to do is simply wait till Trump is gone, and there's no guarantee the next guy is going to do
well,
that.
that's
So there's
exactly
no
what they
way to.
did. That's exactly what they did. They waited till the next guy
Right.
was gone, and now we have Biden in there, and the entire world's on fire under a lack of American leadership and decisive action. So, I mean, you're right.
So,
Look at Biden's
so
presidency up to this point.
right. So what you're saying is Biden is a weaker leader than Trump, but that makes my point that what Trump didn't deter anybody. It just put a delay in it. That's not deterring anything.
That's why American voters need to stop being low information social justice voters and start voting on shit that actually matters. And then we can have continuity when we have representation that actually gives a fuck about America's standing in the world. So if we had people that voted for people that were like-minded and maybe not so, harsh rhetoric like Trump, but someone who's willing to have a backbone like him and enact policies like that, we could have peace and prosperity like we did for 4 years under Trump. But we don't have that
Well,
now, and I don't see that as long as we keep electing dumbasses and as long as we have low information
well,
voters.
in regards to electing a dumbass, I have to ask you this question. If you are a successful politician, but you know your insults, tweets, and rhetoric is costing you votes, and you look at the voter and say, fuck your feelings and keep doing it anyway, and then lose the election, doesn't that make you a dumbass too? Because that's not necessary to make the country great. You don't need to do what's costing you votes to make the country great. You're choosing to do it because you're having fun bullying people. Wouldn't that also make the politician doing that a dumbass as well?
100%. 100%. And it used to. This is what used to infuriate me. This is the one problem I had was Trump's Twitter fingers. The one problem I had because he would always pick a fight with the media, immediately following something he did that was great for the country, and it immediately got overshadowed on every news network because rather than talk about the accomplishment, they spent the entire 24-hour news segments talking about what he tweeted that day. So yes, it did make him a dumbass for doing that. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So, and we should reelect the dumbass because his policies are great.
Yep, I will be voting for him in 2024, and I guarantee you a large swath of independent voters are going to rethink what they did in 2020 and reelect him in 2024. I guarantee it.
All right. Hopefully we're around to talk about it. I tend to think you're wrong, but I'm willing to concede if you are correct. I don't believe Trump can win again, but nevertheless, we will see. Out of the matrix, you know what I got to do. You're always welcome back. You too. You too. All right. Looking in the comments section. By the way, folks, tap the screen. Get your boy up to 55,000 likes. I still don't see why vote Trump. MDA, there's a host of reasons. Josie, appreciate the heart. Shout out to you. Much love. In regards to not voting for Trump, I've said it before, even though I lean left, even though I'm a liberal, there are a host of reasons why a voter would go with Trump. I mean, look at what he's done for the Supreme Court. Look at what he's done for rolling back Roe versus Wade. There's a host of evangelicals that have been wanting Roe versus Wade rolled back since it happened. Trump is the only president that's given that to them. 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. There's a lot of reasons to vote for Trump. Us liberals just don't agree with it, but I totally understand it. MAGA's finished. Why can't we make the president a mediator between two parties? Roderick, that's what we want. That's what we need. But there's too many folks in this country that enjoy the division. I've said this before, particularly to my beloved MAGA folks. When you look at how the folks on the right reacted to Trump saying that Ron DeSantis was Ron DeSanctimonious, because they favor Ron DeSantis, they didn't understand why Trump would attack him like that. That same pushback on Trump should have been what they were doing with Pocahontas, Crazy Bernie, Nervous Nancy, Sleepy Joe. That's what they should have been doing. Because as I told the last caller, you can make America great without any of that bullshit. All of those satellite issues that's really destroying your campaign, and they're all unnecessary. You don't even need to do any of this. You're not going to lose any MAGA by cutting back on the insults. Not one person that identifies as MAGA is going to go away if you stop saying Sleepy Joe. But you might invite more independents into your camp by doing that. You might not get so many liberals pushing back if you stop doing that. You might not get so many young folks under the age of 25 signing up to vote just so they can vote against your ass if you stop doing that. But somehow, some way, nobody was able to get to that man. And it is for that reason that I strongly believe he would have a hell of a time getting reelected in 2024. Just making personal enemies for really no legitimate reason other than I like to get in fights. All right, fair enough. Anyhow, folks, as always, you know what we have to say. This is a MAGA-friendly program. I do not ban, block, or censor anyone for their commentary. Nevertheless, this is a lunch break live. Appreciate the fact you've been rolling with your boy. You could be anywhere you want to be on TikTok. Fact that you're here with your boy, it's an honor. If this is what you enjoy, civilized dialogue from both sides of the aisle, feel free to follow the program. Helps out the algorithms. Ultimately brings me more MAGA. But nevertheless, as I say always around this time, it's a lunch break live, and I got to go. See you guys on the next one.